always for nobody. That same time, that time we don't get time. Thank you for staying with us. Now, we're going to be talking medical right now and health, as my partner said before we went on break. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in women worldwide. In 2018, an estimated 570,000 women were diagnosed with cervical cancer worldwide, and about 311,000 of them died from the disease. Ooh, that's more than half. That's grim. So we're going to be looking at the cervical cancer-free Nigeria. And joining us this morning, we have three women who are joining us
with you.
They're all joining us via Zoom. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Amy Bart. Dr. Bart is the founder of the US-based nonprofit organization Global Oncology, GO. She's an associate professor of medicine and genetics at the Stanford University. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
We also have May Chioma Odiakosa, and she is an ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. May, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Zainab Shinkafi-Bagudu, who is the First Lady of Kebbi State and founder and CEO of Medicaid Cancer Foundation, and serves as a global ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Bart. How we have seen the global figures, 570,000 women globally, out of which 311,000 died. That is a huge figure. But let's break it down to Nigeria. What are the figures like concerning Nigeria? Do the figures even exist?
So the figures do exist. They're not as accurate as we'd like them to be. But I think the most staggering figure for me is that one woman dies of cervical cancer every 8 hours in Nigeria, 3 per day, approximately 11,000 per year. And if you ask me my opinion, I would say that is probably a vast underestimate, because a lot of women with cervical cancer never come to medical attention. And so in Nigeria, it is a huge problem. It is the second most common cancer killer in all of Nigeria. And as you know, both breast and cervical cancer are major issues for our Nigerian mothers, sisters, grandmothers, and so on.
Dr. Shinkafi-Bagudu, you being a doctor, maybe you can help us out with this question. What are the causes of cervical cancer?
Well, cervical cancer has been found the single most important cause of cervical cancer is infection with the human papillomavirus. HPV is a sexually transmitted virus that is preponderant, but with multiple sexual partners, there is a tendency to carry the infection. There are many types of HPV, and it causes different cancers: cancer of the anus, penis, oral cancer. But the one that concerns women, obviously, is the cervical cancer. Also, there are other co-associated factors such as age, obviously sex, only women get it, obesity, lifestyle. Things like obesity is one of the lifestyle issues, poor eating, and so on. But Again, I must reiterate the single most important causative factor that has been found to be associated with cervical cancer directly is infection with HPV virus. And this is the one cancer that we know the cause and so we can eliminate.
May, we're told that you lost your sister 2 years ago to cervical cancer. Well, it's not too late to express our condolences to you. And since then, you have become an ambassador for a cervical cancer-free Nigeria. What have you had to do as a global ambassador?
Thank you so much for having me. One of the most important things that we as Nigerians overlook is education, talking about this curable disease and knowing that if it's caught in time, the survival rate will go up. So I am committed to spread the word about this disease. I'm also helping to push so that we can get funding to bring the HPV vaccine to Nigeria. I'm going to be involved in fundraiser that happening up Northern California. We're going to have fundraiser here in Los Angeles as well. But my whole goal is to not stop talking about this disease that took my sister away. I would not stop spreading the word and letting people know that if it's caught in time, it's curable. And to let people know that it's a disease that when you see how my sister suffered, you don't wish that on anyone at all. So my life mission is to keep talking, volunteering, showing up for those that can't show up.
Well, Dr. Batts, you heard Madam May just talk now about education. How much of that would you say is out there? And what are the shortfalls that you can adduce?
Thank you for that question. I think, general education around medical issues is ever improving. I think one of the unfortunate side effects of the COVID pandemic is that we all have become much more aware of health issues, of things like vaccines, et cetera. Unfortunately, most of the medical education that's out there around cervical cancer, which is admittedly pretty limited when you think about education that's geared for your everyday person, is really dry and quite boring. And that's one of the things that we've really tried to overcome. We've tried to provide education to a broad range of individuals in an enticing way. You may ask me, well, what did we decide to do? Many of you will be familiar with the show Sesame Street, which used Muppets to kind of act out everyday scenarios. And what was noted was this was one of the best ways to educate young people, is to make it entertainment. And so taking inspiration from that, what we did a few years ago at Global Oncology was to develop something fun, which was a comic book focused on teaching people about vaccines, immunity, cancer, cervical cancer in particular, and HPV. As you heard from Dr. Bagudu, HPV is the #1 cause of cervical cancer. And there has been a vaccine available to prevent HPV infections for nearly 2 decades now. Over 115 countries in the world have the vaccine broadly available, and Nigeria doesn't. So the Cervical Cancer Free campaign that we are running here today in Nigeria is intended to ensure that no woman ever dies of cervical cancer again as soon as we can get these vaccines out.
Okay. Excellency, can cervical cancer be detected early? And what are the symptoms?
Yes, it can be detected early. Obviously, being cervical, the cervix is the entrance to the woman's womb. So the symptoms that a woman can get will be related to that: bleeding, some pain, irregular menstruation. But the easiest way to detect it is by screening. We advocate that sexually active women get screened at least every 2 years from the age of 35, it's recommended that you get a screening test. And the screening test, there are various types. There's some ones that are more suited to low resource settings like ours, such as the visual inspection under acetic acid, which involves just staining the cervix with a stain and then looking at the cells to see if they are atypical cells. There's a WHO global strategy that is aiming to eliminate cervical cancer, and the strategy is based on vaccination. It's called the 90-17-90. So it's based on vaccinating 90% of girls, screening 70% of women, eligible women from the age of 35, and early treatment. So that screening that you mentioned is one of the cornerstones, and it's really very important because, again, like Chioma said, if it's detected early, then it can be treated. There are low resource tools available to treat it, which is available in Nigeria, even though the vaccine isn't. But screening is very important. Again, screening is not available on our healthcare system, but at least women can get to a health center and get screened either using a pap smear, VIA, or the HPV DNA testing.
Well, Your Excellency, when you talk about this thing, the question that came to my mind for you would be: are there some pushbacks based on culture or any of those things that may have made it difficult to get the people to access the health opportunities that are around them?
It's not culture. Culture affects health-seeking behavior, I agree, but there is a lack of availability. With ₦1 million in your hand today, you really have to work hard to find an HPV vaccine in Nigeria. It's available privately. It doesn't cost ₦1 million. It costs about between 10,000 to 12,000 naira, and you need 2 doses. But it's just not available in the country. And that is the systemic issue. There is a worldwide production issue. The demand far outweighs the supply. The high-income countries are giving it's already on their immunization schedules. For us, it is not. It's not one of the recommended vaccines on the MPHCDA's schedule. And it's not given the way we give our BCG, DPT, and other childhood vaccines. And all young girls from the age of 13 are supposed to be able to access it. So before we get to talking about culture, it has to be available. And then we can, of course, this is part of the things that we're doing in creating awareness, trying to adopt, influence the health-seeking behavior and making people aware that there is a vaccine. And the earlier and harder we do it, the more it will be accepted when eventually, as we hope and we're working towards, it is introduced by the government.
Well, madam, I have to tell you, I can't wait for this program to be over for me to get to read this comic book, Dr. Obi, Cancer Chronicles Volume 1. When you came across, when you first heard about this, Your Excellency, I'm still with you on this. The first question that would naturally come to me about this would be, how do we cascade this to our locals?
Well, the comic book is in a way that it's relatable. Dr. Obi, even the name Obi is a relatable thing, and we can also see that it's a cartoon, and so people can read it more easily. It's not like a hard textbook or leaflet that has technical words. It's in an easy language. Then you might say how many of our people really can read, which is where ambassadors and advocates and non-governmentals like us come in by having outreaches, working with community gatekeepers, having school health programs, going to schools and educating them far and wide. For me, in Kebbi, we do a lot of school outreaches, and we go to the villages and the rural areas, enlist the support of the traditional religious leaders, explain to them what cancer is all about. Because going back to the cultural issue and beliefs, superstitious beliefs, our people tend to have all kinds of beliefs circled around illness, and there are all sorts of superstitious things. So we have to dispel their minds of these beliefs and give them the right, accurate information that is backed up by science.
Is there any way, Madam May, that you think that this comic book can help younger children to change lifestyles along the line to make things better so that they don't even get to the point where we are looking for any HPV for them?
I think the kids being aware of what this cervical cancer is, I think having them discuss this with their friends, their sisters, their brothers, it's very important because it puts the word out there. They're aware of it. They know that it's curable, and they know that also the vaccine helps. It opens up the opportunity for people to talk about something in our culture is considered taboo, right? When the younger people are able to discuss this with their friends, their teachers, their church members, their mom and dad, then we're open to discussing very difficult situations, but they're aware of it. Most of the people I spoke to when my sister got ill didn't know about cervical cancer, didn't know that it was curable. I didn't know how easily you can get it or whether it's curable. So I think this book, this cartoon is really a handbook for the future so that the kids are getting to the point where they're very aware, as opposed to being in your 30s and your 20s and you don't even know anything about cervical cancer.
You know, generally, madam, the fears created by the mere thought of cancer is there. I don't know, but let's see a little bit of that video that you just saw, you know, in a little while, and then we'll come back to talk about some of the other issues that can help us to address this matter.
Obi Cancer Chronicles, Volume 1, Cervical Cancer and the HPV Vaccine. Our story begins in Lagos, Nigeria. In this bustling city, we find three young people, Aisha, Nato, and Timmy.
Did you guys see Black Panther yet?
Yes, it was amazing. It was great to see an African superhero.
It was good.
What do you mean good? It was the best movie ever.
Aisha, you look a little sad. Is everything okay?
Well, not really.
What's wrong?
I found out my auntie has something called cervical cancer.
No, that's terrible.
Is she okay?
Well, the doctor said she should be fine, but I'm worried I'm going to get it.
Well, have you seen your auntie recently?
Yes, she lives with us, but she mostly stays in her room. I mean, you can only get cancer if you touch somebody with cancer, right?
No, I heard you can get cancer from bad juju.
That is not right at all. Everyone knows that cancer is caused by sin. If you do something evil, bad things will happen to you like disease and sickness.
My auntie isn't evil. She's so nice.
Oh, excuse me, children. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but none of your ideas are correct.
Says who?
Well, I do. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Orisa Obi. However, you can call me Doc. It is important that you learn the truth about cancer and not just a bunch of nonsense.
Okay, Doc. What kind of cancer?
I want to know too.
Well, let me show you. I'll start from the beginning. Cellular reproduction is a normal process, allowing our tissues, organs, and body to be healthy. Cells must grow, divide, and die in a controlled and orderly way. But
You could go on and on with that one.
Quite interesting.
I mean, those ugu-headed things, I don't know. So that is one thing, and I'm pretty sure that it's something impressive, you know, Madam May. But you see the fears. Okay, those children, for instance, I mean, those are their realities.
Yeah.
And that is for those who have the information at all. Many children don't even get to hear about it. And then that girl, as you saw in the comic book, I'm sure you're aware of it, she's afraid she was going to get it. So the fears created around, you know, the issue of cancer is something that definitely is a little scary. How do you see this comic book helping to navigate that murky water?
Let me tell you, when my sister was sick, I came home from work and she was arguing with someone on the phone. And after I said, "What's wrong?" She said people are spreading rumors about her having cervical cancer. And she didn't want people to know she had it. And I hear she is fighting for her life, right? And she's worried about what people are saying about cervical cancer because the information most people have is that if you have that cancer, you must have been promiscuous or done something wrong, just like the kids in the cartoon said. So I think it's important that we expose ourselves, our children, our mothers, our brothers and sisters earlier on to see what this cancer is really all about. That helps in seeking screening. That helps in understanding there's no shame that you have this cancer. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just a sickness that you have. And also to be able to ask for help earlier on, as opposed to worrying what some other person is saying. This generation of kids reading this book will be able to be open about what they're feeling, be open to accepting what the cure could be, as opposed to you're fighting for your life and you're worried about someone having some misconception about your illness, which you had nothing to do with it.
Okay. All right. Dr. Bhatt, Aisha expressed a fear in that little cartoon that we just watched, and her fear was she's afraid that she's going to get it because her aunt has it. So is it in any way hereditary?
So cervical cancer is not hereditary. There are some cancers that are, but they make up a very small subset of the total cancers that we see. And so that's one of the things that this video tries to get into is dispelling myths and fears. In this case, there's no way that Aisha is going to catch the disease from her aunt, and there's no way also that she's going to inherit it. And so, you know, one of the things that I think I really love about this video is it brings these characters to life. It brings these fears and concerns that often we're too embarrassed to talk about out into the public. And the video is publicly and freely available on YouTube. So if kids want to see either our comic book or the video, they're all available on the cervicalcancerfree.org website.
How often should a woman be tested for that cancer?
So it depends from country to country. Most countries, as Dr. Bagudu mentioned, usually screen about every 2 years from the time of initial sexual intercourse. But that can vary a lot. For women who are in monogamous long-term relationships, sometimes that is extended out. But for the most part, every 2 years is what is recommended right now in Nigeria, and that's an excellent screening schedule.
So, Your Excellency, this is the word that is out now. Do you know if there are any other products beside the comic book that maybe people can have access to? Of course, we have seen that there is a video. Are there other materials that people might need to get access to information about cervical cancer?
Absolutely. There is a lot of information out there. And I might add that some of them are in our local dialects. The comic book is in English, but we have the Medicaid Foundation has a short drama in Hausa. There are many organizations that have made there are CDs that you can download online in the 3 main Nigerian languages that talks about all the cancers, particularly breast and cervical. There tends to be a focus on those two because they're the commonest ones. So there is a lot of material out there online, and there are many non-governmentals that are doing great jobs going around right into hard-to-reach areas, showing videos like this, as well as offering free screening.
So what would be your final word, madam, to everyone listening and watching you right now concerning this issue?
Well, the most important thing, either male or female, is to know your body. At all times, know your body and know what is normal. The minute there's something abnormal, and particularly if we zone down to cervical cancer now, when a woman starts to have irregular bleeding, when she starts to have bleeding after intercourse, when she feels that there's something wrong with her body, then the first place to go to seek help is to the health facility that is near you, and insist, keep on going back and insisting that there is something wrong and get tested. There's no point in hiding it and stigmatizing people because the disease only gets worse, and that is what we see in our communities. We only get to see them in the hospitals when they have reached an advanced stage, and so the death rate is very high. It's not that the disease kills, it's because of the late presentation that we get in low middle income countries that makes the mortality so high. I must also add that it's important to live a healthy lifestyle, exercise regularly, eat the right kind of food, and seek help and screening when necessary.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Dr. Zainab Shinkafi-Bagudu, First Lady of Kebbi State, and also founder and CEO of Medicaid Cancer Foundation, and she is a global ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. And we also had as guests on this segment May Chioma Odiakosa, who is ambassador of the Cervical Cancer-Free Nigeria campaign. She's based in Los Angeles. And we also had Dr. Amy Bart, founder of the US-based nonprofit organization Global Oncology, GO. She's Associate Professor of Medicine and Genetics at the Stanford University. Thank you all very much, ladies, for joining us and sharing your insights with us this morning. We wish you luck in the work that you're doing, and we hope that you will get help from other media houses like ours so that we can tell more people about this cancer and cut down the numbers, because 3 a day is much too high for women to be dying of cancer in Nigeria.
Absolutely.